So the existence of God is not self-evident. It is not something, Thomas says, that we immediately grasp as being obviously true. If we were perfect beings, if we had the kind of limitless intellect that he ascribes to God, then God's existence would be self-evident, would not need proof. But because we do not grasp God fully, we, at least from the standpoint of our reason, if not our faith, do need, or at least can, prove the existence of God. But how? That is, how will we prove the existence of God, or how can the existence of God be proved? This is the second article, the second question, whether it can be demonstrated that God exists. Well, surely we know, we can anticipate that Thomas wants to say that it can be, and the question really is how. In his type of demonstration, there's a long history of this. It's very prominent in St. Paul, and you can see it actually indicated in the Quran, the holy book of Islam, too, that we cannot grasp God directly. We cannot know God directly. It's a very important part of Thomas's thought. That is denied us because of the limitedness, the finitude of our intellect. But that we can see around us in the world, in the shape of the world, his traces. That is, we can see his effects. We can know God at least as the cause of the effects that we see around us in the world. That's where we start from what we know. We start from what is familiar to us. Whether it can be demonstrated that God exists, well, yes. And what sort of demonstration is it? I answer that, he says this. Demonstration can be made in two ways. One is through the cause, and is called a priori, and this is to argue from what is prior absolutely. The other is through the effect, and is called a demonstration a posteriori. This is to argue from what is prior relative only to us. So an a priori demonstration would be a demonstration that started, he says, from the cause. That would be, I guess, more like Anselm's argument. We start with God. We start with the concept of God, with our grasp of one of his attributes being a being greater than which no other being can be thought, and then we demonstrate that concept must exist also in reality, or that being must exist not only in the mind but also in reality. To argue a posteriori is to argue from what comes after, what's posterior, from the effects, and what is prior relative only to us, what we start with, but not what the world started with, you might say. So the idea is that there are certain things in the world that can only be explained by reference to God, and I think this is kind of what Aristotle was doing with the unmoved mover, is saying there are certain aspects of the world that indicate that there must be this sort of being that moved itself, and we'll see how Thomas actually does draw from Aristotle's basic argument in the metaphysics about the unmoved mover. Just to continue that, he says, when an effect is better known to us than its cause, from the effect we proceed to the knowledge of the cause, and from every effect the existence of its proper cause can be demonstrated so long as its effects are better known to us. Because since every effect depends upon its cause, if the effect exists, the cause must pre-exist. Hence the existence of God, insofar as it is not self-evident to us, can be demonstrated from those of his effects which are known to us. So this is how he will proceed in his method for proving the existence of God. It's looking out at the world and regarding the world as an effect, or potentially as an effect, and looking for the cause of that effect, and the cause of that effect will be God. So then now we'll move on and look at the third article.